Peace, love, liberty, radio.
And the walls come crashing down as the war at home reaches your town. You have no choice, it's safe and clean. We all submit to the war machine.
I found it. People have been looking for this for years. People have been talking about it for years, and I finally found it. I found the war on Christmas. It's something that I've been hearing about probably since I was at least in like middle school, high school, definitely. The war on Christmas! The war on Christmas! We must fight because they're trying to destroy Christmas. Well, I found the war on Christmas, and it's not in the United States of America. It's in that magical land that I always get told that I should move to because apparently I don't love tyranny enough. I always get told, you should move to Somalia. If you don't like it here, move to Somalia. Well, apparently that's where the war on Christmas is taking place, is in Somalia. The story comes from Reuters. And despite what many people would have you believe, there actually is a government in Somalia. And that government recently declared war on Christmas. Again, the story comes from Reuters. The government of Somalia has issued a ban on Christmas and New Year's celebrations in the country, saying the festivities have nothing to do with Islam. Sheikh Mohammed Cairo, director of Somalia's Ministry of Religion, said on state radio, "We warn against celebration of Christmas, which is only for Christians. This is a matter of faith. The Christmas holiday and its drum beatings have nothing to do with Islam." Now, this is something that most Americans would completely disagree with. His statement that Christmas is only for Christians. Because here in the United States, most of what is associated with Christmas has absolutely nothing to do with Christianity. The lighting of a tree, the decorating of a tree, that has absolutely nothing to do with Christianity. A jolly fat man riding around in a sleigh with some reindeer delivering gifts has nothing to do with actual Christianity. Now, it does have some sort of connection, kind of maybe, to some Catholic lore of, there was a guy named St. Nicholas, and he rode around on a donkey, and he gave kids toys. But there's no actual connection to what is in the Bible between what is celebrated, a jolly fat man in a red suit and giving people toys. There's no mention anywhere in the Bible of a jolly fat man wearing a red suit giving stuff away. That came about in like the, I don't know, probably 1400s, and then has evolved ever since in various kinds of ways. But most of what Americans think of as Christmas traditions have absolutely nothing to do with any teaching that's in the Bible, and it's only tangentially related to various traditions that were picked up by one church or another. The story here from Reuters continues that the Minister of Religion sent letters to the police, national security intelligence, and officials in the capital of Mogadishu, instructing them to prevent Christmas celebrations. So not only are they saying that Christmas is only for the Christians and has nothing to do with Islam, they are going to prevent Christmas celebrations, but they do not specify how they will prevent said celebrations or what will happen if one attempts to have a Christmas or even a New Year's celebration. The announcement has echoed the militants from al-Shabaab, which controlled the capital of Mogadishu until 2011. Among their edicts was to ban Christmas celebrations. It's not immediately clear what prompted the government announcement. Somalia is almost entirely Muslim, but it hosts thousands of African Union peacekeepers, including from the majority Christian countries of Burundi, Uganda, and Kenya. Uganda, you may recall if you have paid attention to some of the news over the last several years, Uganda is one of the countries that has outright banned homosexuality. If you are convicted of being a homosexual in Uganda, that penalty that punishment is the death sentence. Your penalty for being a homosexual in Uganda is the death penalty. And most of the stories that I've read related to this somehow connected into those Muslims are horrible. But, well, according to Reuters here, Uganda is majority Christian. And I think that the vast majority of what I would consider to be sane Christians would absolutely condemn what is happening in Uganda. Now, there are some people, like those at the Westboro Baptist Church, that they like to pick and choose from the book of Leviticus what they believe. And so they say, God hates fags is one of their popular slogans, and I believe their website is actually godhatesfags.com. But just a few paragraphs later, the Levitical law talks about not eating seafood, not having different crops in the same field, not wearing mixed fabric, which means if you wear a cotton wool blend sweater or shirt or any other kind of garment or polyester, cotton polyester blend, etc., you are in violation of Levitical law. If you eat seafood, you are in violation of Levitical law. But yet, very few Christians today, and I stress very few because there are some that do stick to that diet, but very few stick to the diet of what's prescribed in Leviticus. Very few Christians, and I'm not aware of any, but again, I don't want to say none because I'm sure somebody somewhere has gone out to protest Red Lobster with signs saying, God hates shellfish. And it's absolutely ludicrous to me to think that people would, pick and choose what parts of the Old Testament and then wind up in the same breath saying, but Jesus, he fulfilled that, so we're under the new covenant, but still this thing that I don't like. And that's really what a lot of Christianity is, and it's really upsetting to me that so many Christians do act that way. And it's one reason that I no longer use that term to describe my faith. Now, let me continue here with a quote from the spokesman for Mogadishu Mayor Abdel Fattah Halani, says Christmas will not be celebrated in Somalia for two reasons. All Somalis are Muslim, and there is no Christian community here. The other reason is security. Christmas is for Christians, not Muslims. Now, it's interesting that he says the other reason we're not celebrating Christmas is security, but he does not explain what he is talking about. How does celebrating with a tree and giving gifts have anything to do with security? Here's a hint. It doesn't. Now I'm going to lighten things up for the rest of the show. Enjoy.
In 2115 New England, there are no borders, no states, and no regulations, yet never has a more peaceful and prosperous place existed. But Mr. Drake's security company has seen better days. Faced with the prospect of waning power, Mr. Drake intends to replace the anarchy of New England with a government. But at what cost? And can anyone stop him? Anarchy in New England by Joe Jarvis is available from Amazon.com and all major bookstores. In 1999, Darryl W. Perry began a search for traditional values, which led him down a path to the ideas of liberty. He tells the story in A Rebel's Journey, My Path to Liberty. Of the book, Dr. Brian Sovereign says, sometimes it's funny, and sometimes I think it's crazy, but it's always authentic. Find A Rebel's Journey, My Path to Liberty by Darryl W. Perry on Facebook, read reviews on Amazon, ask for A Rebel's Journey wherever books are sold, or visit arebelsjourney.com. When her plush and comfy life suddenly and unexpectedly fell apart, Brooke and her dog Cloud set out to defy the odds. If this is a man's world, as they say, living on the streets is no place for a young woman. One day she awoke in the redwood forest and realized she had become a hobo, and would ultimately come to know exactly what it means to survive. How to Be a Hobo by Brooke Willett is available from Amazon.com and all major bookstores.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry.
Now, before I jump into some fun, interesting things for the rest of the show, I want to make sure that I tell you about Liberty.me. Liberty.me is a social network, but it is so much more, because there are things that you can get on Liberty.me that you cannot get on Facebook. Tell me where on Facebook there's a list of free ebooks that you can download that are hosted by Facebook. Now, yeah, I'm sure somebody somewhere on their Facebook page has made a note of, hey, here's some free ebooks. But that's not hosted by Facebook. Liberty.me has ebooks stored on their site that you can download for free. And yes, you can do the traditional social media stuff where you post cat memes, cat pictures, join groups, post statuses, tell people what you're eating for supper, and the like. But almost everybody at Liberty.me thinks the same way you do when it comes to the ideas of freedom. So it's an instant community sort of thing. And again, there are things on Liberty.me that you are not going to find on traditional social media. Chat rooms, for instance, that run 24 hours a day. So it's not like, create a chat with your friends and then whenever somebody's online. No, there are chat rooms running 24 hours a day. And, of course, there's the groups and the other stuff that you would traditionally find on social media. But one thing you will not find is internet trolls. And that's because Liberty.me is a paid service. You have to pay. And internet trolls don't want to have to pay to be an internet troll. And what's the benefit of not having to deal with internet trolls is you don't have to worry about then going over and blocking someone, because that's generally who you wind up blocking on Facebook, right? Some guy that's just there to, get people riled up and see how many people he can tick off. You don't have to deal with that at Liberty.me. So go, sign up, use referral code FPP Radio, and save 10%. Liberty.me, referral code FPP Radio. Now, the public policy polling, they do some interesting polls all the time. And I find out about these because I signed up for their notice to where every time they release polls, I get notified. And apparently, they did a poll a few days ago related to Christmassy things. And since today is Christmas, at least the day that I'm recording this, you might be listening to it on Boxing Day. I don't know. But I'm recording this on Christmas. This is the Christmas episode of Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. I'm your host, Darryl W. Perry. And so public policy polling did a survey related to all things Christmas, or not all things, but the entire survey is Christmas related. And they say that Americans are becoming less and less concerned about the war on Christmas. I wonder if they found out that it's only happening in Somalia. In 2012, public policy polling found that 47% of voters nationwide believed that such a thing existed. That is the war on Christmas. 47% of people 3 years ago said there is a war on Christmas. Only 40% said no, there's not. Now, 37%, so down 10 points. Only 37% of voters believe that the war on Christmas exists. 42% say that it doesn't. And there's the predictable party divide, they report, with Republicans believing in the war on Christmas at 56%, with only 26% of Republicans saying no such thing. And the numbers are almost flip-flopped for Democrats. 26% of Democrats say that there's a war on Christmas. 55% say there is not. You can add protecting America from the war on Christmas to the list of issue voters think Donald Trump is the most on. And that sentence doesn't make sense. But anyway, I continue. Among voters who think that there's a war on Christmas, 29% say they think Donald Trump is the candidate best fit to wage the counteroffensive. 16% say that the neurosurgeon Ben Carson is best fit. 15% say Hillary, 14% for Ted Cruz, 9% for Jeb, and 6% each for Marco Rubio and Bernie Sanders. And I'm here to tell you right now that I absolutely will not, if by some weird chance I'm elected president, and yes, I am running, I'm seeking the Libertarian Party's nomination. And by the way, while I don't agree with John McAfee on very many of his issues, there are a lot of those issues where he is just not libertarian. I do welcome him into the Libertarian Party race. Apparently, he announced yesterday that he's seeking the Libertarian Party nomination now instead of trying to get ballot access on his own through the Cyber Party. My guess is he realized how expensive ballot access is. So he's announced he's seeking the Libertarian Party's nomination. And from what I'm seeing, there's not a lot of libertarians that are actually supporting him because of a lot of the baggage that he brings with him. Most notably, the allegations that he may have murdered someone while he was living in Belize. But I welcome him into the race because, at the very least, it means that I'm not the most bizarre candidate. Not that I was in the lightest, but hopefully he winds up diverting some attention away from a couple of the celebritarian candidates that have either announced or not yet announced. But anyway, it should be an interesting race, and you can actually help decide who the nominee is if you join the Libertarian Party. It costs $25, and you would also need to attend the convention in Orlando over Memorial Day weekend. So go to lp.org, and you can join the party if you want to, attend the convention, and you can choose the nominee. It's not like what they do in the Republican and Democratic parties to where they have primaries and people think they know who's going to wind up being whatever and getting delegates, and then they go, and then certain delegates aren't allowed to vote and other ones are. Nope. You go to the LP convention, and as long as you're a delegate, you get to vote, and you're not sworn to vote for any certain candidate. And it's a very open process that everybody that wants to be involved in can be involved in, as long as that number of people doesn't exceed the number of allocated delegates. But that has never happened as far as I'm aware. So anyway, back to this. And the point that I was going to make, if I am elected president, I vow that I will not start any wars, and that includes I will not fight the war on Christmas. Because there is no such thing in the United States. It exists only in the minds of people. Back to the survey and the results here from public policy polling. Americans have increasingly been identifying as independents over the last few years, and apparently that extends to their perception of Santa's party affiliation as well. Apparently, public policy polling first asked people in 2012 on the heels of Barack Obama's re-election, and 44% of voters said they thought Santa was a Democrat. 28% said they thought he was a Republican. Now the share of voters thinking that he belongs to either of the major parties has declined from 44 to 28% thinking he's a Democrat, and from 28% to 22% thinking he's a Republican. And there's more from the Christmas poll. Ha, 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 ho, ho, ho. And I'll tell that to you in just a moment. Stay tuned. Why do they hate us? Is libertarianism compatible with Islam? Davi Barker answers these questions and more in Voluntary Islam and Other Essays. He advances the voluntarist cause with analysis of the confluence of values between Islam and libertarianism, as well as contemporary movements from the Tea Party to the Arab Spring. Voluntary Islam by Davi Barker is available from Amazon.com and all major bookstores.
It is the year 91,001 BCE. Witness humanity's origins in Hyperchronius, a classic role-playing game for Windows PCs with a story like no other game before. A liberty-oriented experience that is not to be missed. Go to zog.ninja to get your copy of Hyperchronius today. Use the code FPP to get $1 off. Hyperchronius, zog.ninja, code FPP.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at weusecoins.com. That's weusecoins.com.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com.
Other findings from the Christmas poll. The major December holidays have varying degrees of popularity among Americans. Who would have thunk it? Who would have thought that there are several different holidays and people in the U.S. would have opinions on which one they prefer and which ones they think favorably of? The major December holidays, again, have varying degrees of popularity. Everyone, for the most part, likes Christmas. Christmas has a favorability rating, 88% favorable, 6% don't like Christmas, and pretty much everyone with an opinion of Hanukkah likes it. 64% to 8% who don't like Hanukkah, meaning the rest have no opinion. It gets a little more divided when it comes to Kwanzaa, with a favorability rating of 37% and 21% finding it unfavorable. Festivus has a net favorability of 7, with 24% finding it favorable, 17% not so much. But of those holidays, both of those holidays see a party divide when it comes to views about them. Democrats are more okay with Kwanzaa and Festivus, 49% and 25% respectively. Republicans, meanwhile, have a negative view of these holidays, with a negative 6% favorability for Kwanzaa and negative 12% for Festivus. And how does one have a negative rating? Well, what you do is you take the favorability and you subtract the unfavorable. So Republicans' view on Kwanzaa, 27% are favorable, 33% find Kwanzaa unfavorable, so negative 6%. The massive party and generational divide when it comes to the issue of fruitcake, or rather there is a massive divide on fruitcake, and I must say that I absolutely love fruitcake, especially the fruitcake that Mamaw makes. And for those of you not familiar with the term Mamaw, Mamaw is a southern term of endearment for one's grandmother. It can be either a maternal or a paternal grandmother. In my case, it's the maternal grandmother. The paternal grandmother was just grandmother because she was very proper. But Mamaw makes a very good fruitcake where she takes a bunch of different fruit, various, dried stuff and whatnot, and mixes in orange marmalade, I think, or orange preserves, pear preserves, something along those lines, and quote unquote, just enough cake batter to keep it from falling apart. And it's the most moist thing as far as cake goes that you have ever eaten. And for some reason, and I did not even think of this until I said moist, apparently that's some new weird trigger word for some people because of something I don't completely understand. But yeah, the cake, it's a very moist cake. And I don't care if your little trigger goes off. You can send me hate mail to hatemail@fppradio.com. Or if you want me to answer questions, I do that every Wednesday. You can send those questions to ama@fppradio.com. Now back to the survey about fruitcake. Apparently, only 38% of Americans say they think fruitcake is good. 52% say it's not, and that means that they have never had good fruitcake. They are wrong, absolutely wrong, wrong, wrong. Republicans and seniors. 50% of Republicans, 58% of seniors like fruitcake. Democrats, 39% like, 53% don't like. And young voters, although they don't define young voters, but 27% to 64% of young voters say no thank you to the fruitcake. And apparently there's controversy over whether or not Die Hard is a Christmas movie. Well, only 13% of voters believe that it is. 62% say no. And The Grinch. Well, what are your thoughts on The Grinch? Remember, at the very end of the movie, the Grinch had this change of heart, and his heart grew 3 sizes that day. So the Grinch became a good guy at the end of the movie. Hashtag spoiler warning, right? But apparently Americans aren't buying the Grinch's rehabilitation, and he has only an 18% favorability rating. 60% of voters nationwide see him in a negative light. That gives him very similar numbers to Mitch McConnell, who has 15% approval rating. 62% of American voters do not like Mitch McConnell. There are several holiday-related issues that do bring Americans together across party lines. Americans overall prefer multicolored lights to white lights at 58%, and that includes 60% 60% of Democrats and 59% of Republicans. Americans overall prefer real Christmas trees to artificial, with a slim majority favoring real. And it's a good thing that this is not an actual vote, right? Because if this were an actual vote, then that would mean no one would be allowed to have an artificial Christmas tree. But thank you that this is only an opinion poll that has no force behind it. 52% of Americans prefer real Christmas trees. 53% of Democrats, 51% of Republicans. 62% of Americans prefer opening presents on Christmas morning. 23% go with Christmas Eve, with that breaking down 68% among Republicans, 57% among Democrats. And again, the percentage I'm giving you is the percentage that prefer opening on Christmas morning. And we all think we're on Santa's nice list, or at least the vast majority. 76% of those surveyed said they're on the nice list. Only 7% are being honest with themselves and the pollsters, saying that, yeah, they're probably on the naughty list. And apparently Democrats are more honest. 7% of Democrats say they're on the naughty list. Only 5% of Republicans. 82% of Republicans say they're on the nice list. 77% of Democrats agree. 42% of Americans claim that they don't put anything in their eggnog, but among those who do, 22% prefer rum, 16% go with bourbon, and 7% pick brandy. Now, who is your favorite reindeer? Apparently, that's something that is not quite as divided as one may think. Rudolph, yeah, the one with the red nose, the one that went down in history, just like that other guy. Rudolph has the support of 46% of voters, meaning 46% say he's the favorite, 15% were undecided, 9% for Dasher, 6% for Prancer, 5% for Comet, Cupid, and Blitzen, 4% for Vixen, and Donner. No, not the cannibal, the reindeer. Donner came in at 3%. Have a very happy holiday, whatever it is that you celebrate, and I'll be back on Monday.